Stream house is red. I don't know if... There we go.
It's not bad. The static is great now.
Oh, good. Okay. I can't tell what's the cause of what, so I'm going to tilt this camera down. Be all right. Got this weird lighting situation going on behind my head because the sun's coming straight through behind me. There we go. Hopefully it's not overblowing my camera too much. Yeah, the stream came and went for a second, but I think we're all right, kids. Yeah, I have a very, very white voice today, thanks to picking up my son's cough. You know, it's real easy to not shake hands with people and, you know, do that kind of stuff when it's cold and flu season and stuff like that. But when it's your kid and you haven't seen him in a stretch, like, all caution goes to the wind. Unsupported resolution. What? Current resolution.
30 seconds.
Okay, cool. Hold on. I will do just that. Unsupported resolution. What are you talking about? Hopefully that's a little bit better. Starting up in just a second.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Live exclusively for WCPT in Chicago, standing up and speaking out, here's Hal Sparks.
Welcome back to the show for this holiday break. We've been through, leading up to the holiday. You know, we knew it was going to be a noisy political holiday season, largely because, you know, the Mueller investigation was at a quickening. There was all this idea that somehow, some way, you know, we were going to get a snippet of something coming out. There were secret subpoenas and all that kind of stuff. And then what should have been a normal piece of business, passing a continuing resolution on the budget, has become an enormous smokescreen that the Trump administration has released upon us all that it smells like something that, quite frankly, Johnny Million might have done in the studio. Johnny Million is with us.
Wow.
See,
Wow.
I got there.
No time at all.
That's right. Well, I figure after the holidays especially, considering the variety of materials consumed over the holidays.
Oh yeah, I got something brewing today.
Yeah, some gastrointestinal distress that is epic.
That's what we'll call it.
How are you? How was your Christmas?
It was lovely. My mother-in-law's cat sat on my lap, and that was a very nice gift.
Oh, does it not lean in that direction? Does it have it?
No, because it's very afraid of most men because my father-in-law is evil.
Animals can sense evil, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So, and we're both bald, so I think that she thinks that I'm him sometimes. But I sat in the right chair with the right vibe, and she just like melted on me.
That was enough.
Awesome.
That was enough.
I'll send you a picture. It's adorable.
I turned the volume up, so chat room should be able to hear Johnny a little bit better now. So did you get anything good? I mean, I gotta ask you. What was your...
I got I lost my Fitbit, so I got another Fitbit.
Mm-hmm. How'd you lose your Fitbit? Did it die because you worked it to death?
No, it was one of... I wish. It was one of those, like, little Fitbit ones, you know, that's just like a little...
Right, the one you could smuggle into prison? Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
And so because I was smuggling it into prison, I was fishing around in there somewhere.
And it just vanished.
I think it fell out on the floor somewhere. Honestly, I think it was when I was trying to find a guitar pick in my pocket, and I think I kind of scooped it out.
That happens all the time. I realize I carry a lot of times when I take my vitamins for the day or my supplements, I will carry them in my pocket, in my left pocket because my money and my change are in my right pocket, and I almost swallowed the cap to my Apple iPen.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because it looks exactly like a pill, and I was like, did I put the pen cap in? And I did, and it's
put the pen cap in the.
yeah, I just dodged it. So it's and so the Fitbit was good, and you got a replacement for that guy. It wasn't really a
But I got a
surprise.
fancy one. I got the Fitbit Versus. And
Oh.
It's like a baby Apple Watch.
Oh, nice. Well, does it work? I mean, I know you're a runner.
I used to be a runner. Now I'm a walker.
I see. Now you're a lounger.
Yeah, I'm definitely a lounger.
Right. How good are those things at tracking a Rascal Scooter's RPMs?
It's if you're in a Rascal at Target, they go really slow, so it's hard to get it to register.
Right. Yeah, you got to get those. As Jonathan Winters would say, you got to get that thing out in the open so you can really gun it and see what she's got. So I got, besides getting
What'd you
son's,
get?
I got my son's cough. He was nice enough to give me that for Christmas. I was saying to Lady B before we started the show, it's pretty easy to avoid like shaking hands with people and touching stuff when it's strangers and whatnot. But when it's your boy, I don't care. I will throw caution to the wind, and I did. So it's lingering, and I don't have a cough button, so I might occasionally do that.
And what's sweet is that you actually groom your boy like a kitty cat.
Yeah, like it's a cross between monkeys and cats here at the house. Whatever. I'm showing it on the stream right now. But my favorite thing was Camden gave me a 2019 calendar that's his drawings. So he did drawings on every month. So.
And then did he get the days of the week right and everything?
Oh, that part's that because it's like a school project. That part's filled out. All he has to do is do the drawings for the month.
I would like to see next year for him to do the whole thing.
Yeah, days of the week.
Just on the off chance, like you're missing very important shooting days because you're looking at your calendar that's got like 80 days for the month of June.
Sorry, I'm late, guys. There were 3 Thursdays this week. So yeah, that was pretty awesome. And got some guitar stuff, and I got a Universal Audio satellite, which is the little processor that allows you to mix.
Yeah, with all the plugins.
And then it takes the heavy lifting off your computer. So that was pretty good. That was from Mom. It wasn't. She didn't know that's what it was from. But she was like, "What am I getting you? I get something and I got it for you." I'm like, "Okay, that's what you got." So overall, a great holiday though. I think for most, in spite of all the nonsense that's going on. And I don't want to be too much of a downer about it, but folks, hunker down because this might be, the last of the fun Christmases for a little while. There's an article in WAPO this week about how we could be headed for a recession, and Trump is triggering it essentially.
Yeah.
A lot of signs had been pointing to a recession for a while. We were due, quote unquote, for a correction, which is, after Wall Street gets full of itself and then fails itself and then, fixes itself on the backs of everybody but itself. We were headed for one of those anyways. And then, amazingly enough, the stock market, which Trump could not stop patting himself on the back over, started to dive, right magically around the time that he imposed his tariffs and started his trade war with China. And then he, Mnuchin goes out and has verbal diarrhea, and then Trump himself talks about firing his own Fed chairman, whom he placed in the office because he thought Janet Yellen was too short for the job. And that was, by the way, I totally believe his way of saying a woman shouldn't be Fed chairman. That's abundantly obvious. But give him the benefit of the doubt, he basically was annoyed she was short. And,
You're not kidding.
Yeah. No, I'm not kidding. And in wanting to, replace Powell because he's doing what the Fed does, which is mitigate the growth of the of the economy by raising interest rates to kind of, head off any signs of massive inflation kicking in, because these are long unfolding trends, and so you have to kind of ease your way into them so that there's not this sharp spike that ruins the entire economy in one fell swoop. So they knock it up 1/4 percentage point over time, whatever, and the market hates it. One of the reasons the market, quote unquote, hates it is not because it's bad, but because people start pulling their money out of riskier stuff and put it into stuff that they can make a percentage on that they couldn't before when interest rates were next to zero. So as they go up, people pull their money out of the stock market. It does not mean that things are bad or it's unhealthy, but the perception of it is that that's the issue. So Trump himself doesn't like this. He banks on the stock market almost entirely, and looking at his limited power as president right now, he decides maybe I'll just fire Powell. Floats that idea. Stock market starts to take a dip. We are now on track for the worst December in the stock market since the Great Depression, as far as droppage.
Amazing.
Now, again, you can always tell the difference when they talk about percentages. That the sheer numbers aren't there, and if they talk about sheer numbers, they know it's not a big percentage. So, yes, the stock market is volatile, 1,000 points flailing in either direction. And yes, even by percentage amounts, that's not traditionally something that happens. But the reality is that the market is very emotional, the Wall Street especially, and a lot of people, a lot of investors start getting nervous or getting emotional about their investments instead of locking in and going, I believe in this company, I'm investing in this company, and I want my money to benefit me long term, so I'm going to look out for them long term. There's a lot more people in the market since, I'd say, the early 90s, since sort of the mid 90s, really, like birth of E-Trade and that kind of thing, that make up a significant amount of fluctuation in the market. And then, of course, day traders who are psychopaths, some of it being digital. One of the biggest concerns I have is that we have an AI or digitally triggered major crash. We've flirted with those before, and there's a very strong chance that a lot of this chaotic fluctuation could trigger such a thing. And the worry about that isn't that they couldn't turn off the Evernon brought up the long-term bond versus short-term bond returns has been a negative indicator. I did talk about that maybe 2.5 months ago. That once the short-term overtakes the long-term value, that's the biggest signal that we're headed into a recession. That happened in late August, early September, I think. So, my problem is not that the economy will do these kind of things, because it will. The economy will economy. It's not based on facts as much as we think it is. It's based a lot on emotion. It's based a lot on attitude and opinion. And Trump will take the good and benefit himself and dump the blame on somebody else. And there's a very strong chance that if we hit a wall, he will be the worst shepherd of a sheep scatter we have ever seen. That's the scary part. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, mega worldwide now with 100% more. Johnny Million. All right. That's me. Do I think, Edward? Do I think the Ides of March it should be something we should beware? Entirely possible. I think it will drag on. I think what's going to continue to happen is that there will be we may be even a year away from the big slam of of a Trump sealed indictment coming unsealed or something along those lines. But I think over the course of the next 6 months, the March thing, if there's a big hit coming, I think it's the Trump organization. I think it's the company. I think they lose their business license, or they are ordered to divide up their holdings, that kind of thing. And they end up moving their headquarters. And one of the most like weirdest things ever is the Make America Great Again, America First president ends up having to move his corporate headquarters to the Cayman Islands or Dubai or Ireland, just so he can still call it the Trump Organization. And there's a very strong chance. They started great on Friday. We were packing for 500, and I had to take a scheduled call from work. Oh, no. Oh, no, Carl. I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, the Trump Foundation is gone, yes. Why do I wear earbuds instead of headphones? Because of the headache. Because it squeezes around my ear. I don't know. I just prefer it.
$20 seconds.
Okay. Excellent. All right, now I got to find all these pages that I... see this.
This is Doris Davenport, host of The Doris Davenport Show, all local, all the time. I'm on every Saturday morning from 10 to 11, right before Hal Sparks. Now let's get back to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Thank you, Billy, for the super chat, and welcome back to the show, everybody. So Trump shuts down the government because he wants $5 billion for his border wall that's a fence. Call it slats, call it pleats on the border, whatever you want to call it, but we're going to have it because there's drugs and rapists and Mexicans coming.
Who's going to pay for it? Mexico.
100%. So, yeah, Trump has shut down the government in no uncertain terms because his story about Mexico paying for the wall is a lie. Always was. It was always a grift, folks. Always. The U.S. taxpayer would always be on the hook for any financial stuff in terms of its border security. Why, if you really believed what Trump believes about Mexico, why would you leave it up to them to create a barrier on their side, which in theory was the mythology of this, was that on the Mexican side of the border, they're going to build a wall. That's how fantastically stupid this thing was from the beginning. And why we're like, by saying we're going to have a great wall, that we're going to have the best wall, by saying that, the assumption was we, the United States, on our side of the border, and 16 inches from the geographic border on the interior of the United States soil, we would have a border wall. But for Mexico to pay for it and construct it, in theory, it would have to be built on their side. And if they're sending their most violent criminals and their murderers and rapists, and as Trump says they are, and they're trying to get rid of them by dumping them on our lawn, was his argument. Why would they pay to build a wall that would stop them from doing that? Like, the whole thing broke down at every sentence. Like, every question you had about the wall passed, who's going to pay for it? 100%. But anybody that be asked more than like kind of a hello Cleveland level question about it,
Yep.
It falls apart.
And frankly, not to dig too deep into this, but when I remember hearing Bernie be interviewed about all of the things that he was proposing, he had no plans in place on how the things he was saying he wanted would be paid for either. He would just say, "Oh, well, we'll pass something."
Yeah, right.
and I was rooting for him to have a plan. I wasn't listening going, listen to this guy. He doesn't know what he's doing. I was listening going, well, let's hear this plan.
Right.
And he didn't have one.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is the whole we're gonna create free college by taxing the rich. Well, what does that look like? Is that just an income tax on people who make a certain amount of money? There's not enough of those people to pay off college for everybody. There is if you have a strategy like I mentioned a couple weeks ago where you put a 1 cent tax on every stock exchange payment. When everything bought or sold has basically a sales tax on it for a transfer of a penny on each one of those. You could do it with that, but there wasn't any kind of strategy to even talk about that, and I'm not quite sure why. That being said, so Trump, we're staring at a recession right now that is of Trump's own making. And
the Republicans control today.
Yes.
Every branch.
That's right. The House, the Senate, and the presidency. They have, for the last 2 years, they have not done this. They have not funded their wall. They have not passed the situation where they slid it into a bill overall that passed the House and passed the Senate. They were not. They almost had it, and they threw it away simply because they would not. Their racist base would not allow them to acquiesce on DACA at all. And imagine that being your holdout. Imagine that. Imagine the Hispanic people who live in your country, and this is really what they're concerned about. The Hispanic people who live in the United States, who were brought here as children, who have grown up here, who speak English, live as North American Americans. Many of them don't speak Spanish, never lived there. They speak, some speak Spanish at home, but, they live in a situation where their parents have been, are hiding, essentially. So why would they speak Spanish out in public? To some degree, they've had to live in, the witness relocation program level. Meanwhile, they're educating themselves, many of them serving in the military. They're going to college. They're planning on staying here, starting businesses, living here, because there is no impetus for them to go to Mexico and start a business there because they are Americans. They're what I call undocumented Americans. And the hatred of those people is so high that the Republicans wouldn't even take letting them in exchange for $20 billion for the border wall. $20 billion. Now, I personally think that number was so large simply because Schumer knew that solving this, the DACA program issue, actually in bringing those people out of the shadows, making them functional taxpayers, pays off over time. That's a dividend, essentially, of allowing them to live above the line. If you allow people to live above the line and function normally, the economic benefits from it are easily trackable. And so $20 billion against that is a simple price to pay. Okay, you can have your stupid wall. It'll rust and fall over, but in a few years. But this program will last and will benefit the country to the tune of $500 billion over time. And this is why Schumer put it up. He also knew that Trump wouldn't take it, because in talking to these people, he knows where they are. And he knows that their base, no matter how high he put that number, if it means allowing, if it means allowing the DACA people to stay and having, a Reagan-esque type of, inclusion of those folks into society, they'll lose a huge chunk of their base, which is the only people they're talking to right now. 33% blame the Democrats for the shutdown right now. That's 100% of Trump's base, and no one else. So Trump starts the tariff war with China. We're already getting economic indicators. We're headed towards a recession, or quote unquote a correction. It's correction, recession, depression. Right now, all the signs are pointing towards recession. One of the worst ones was this morning on AM Joy. Joy's on break because she's been filling in for Rachel. And the host that was on there this morning, I forget her name, but she was talking to one of these Wall Street dudes, stock market kind of floor trader kind of talking heads, pundits. And he had the same nervous, twitchy voice that everybody started to have at the end of 2007. When everybody got really nervous all of a sudden, right around the suspension of, McCain's campaign, all that stuff, where everybody that you saw going on television talking about this was covered in flop sweat and stammering and arguing that their data shows everything is fine. There's a lot of that on your TV right now, and it's very concerning. And Trump is not a balanced, educated, details-oriented human being that you would need in this circumstance to guide you through this thing again. So what's going to happen? The Republicans, just like 2006 and 7, are going to create a mess, and a Democrat is going to have to get elected to clean it up again. We'll be back right after this. Yeah. A lot of Baghdad Bobs out there at the moment. That's right, Carl.
Culturally sensitive.
Hey, I can hear Johnny right now. That's so weird. Can you hear me, Johnny?
I'm thinking about pooping.
I guess not. I love that this is coming across the air. Did you guys just hear what I heard? We can hear you. I can hear you. I just heard you say that, Johnny, and that's so funny.
Yeah. Oh.
Let's see.
Like what they talk about or who they are? Oh.
I can just hear half his conversation. That's so funny. You have ears in your eyes, and you. A year ago, we were headed
like
for a
really
second. Yeah, no
funny.
question. No. Don't remember the disclaimer coming up. I put that up because they were playing. Hey, Lady B, or Nico, whoever's there. I got this thing jacked up as hot as it's coming from Chicago, so. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right, Evernom. A mild correction is completely reasonable, but because they've already given away their tax break, they've done everything that they could do to stimulate the economy when it didn't need stimulus. That if they get stuck in this moment, they're going to be, we're in for a rough patch. And here's the thing. When they talk about, the economy slowing and it's a bad indicator and blah, blah, blah. Like, economies should slow when they're producing at capacity. Overproduction is not a sign of economic health.
Back in a minute, Hal.
Okay, cool. And Nico, can you bring the volume up headed my way that you're sending to me?
Yep.
Thank you. Hopefully it won't blast me out. Get a little gristly coming. You're right, Tom. Yeah, Edward. Well, if you're not overextended, there will be a period coming very soon where stocks will be cheap, and there's a lot of rich people in the world who are pulling their cash out of other things so they can buy that. Oh, thank you, James. Holy smokes. Thank you so much. Merry New Year. In this country, we say Happy New Year. Sorry.
I'm Dick Kay from
Thank you
back
for
on the
correcting
beat,
my
and
English,
here
which
is the
stinks.
mega worldwide radio program with Hal Sparks.
Thanks so much, James, in our chat room for the super chat. That's awesome. And don't forget, and Billy too as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe on the YouTube channel if you could for me. That helps us out immensely over here. It's youtube.com/Hal Sparks channel. Super easy. So Trump has all these economic indicators that he doesn't understand, but that the people around him understand and are getting very nervous about. And all of a sudden, he proposes closing the border if he can't get his wall, which will cost the U.S. At least $500 million a day, and put a serious crimp with one of the biggest problems with the 2008 crash was the cascading effect. People who did nothing wrong, had their credit lines shut off, that they just had, businesses that had rotating credit lines to pay their bills while they waited for their vendors to pay them. Sometimes if you have a new vendor and they go, hey, yeah, we now pay 60 days after the finish of the job, so we know it's good and blah, blah, blah. So, okay, well, I got to pay everybody who worked. So they take a rolling line of credit loan to pay their bills until that cash comes in, and then they would pay off the loan and any remaining balance of that. Those people, standard operating procedure for them, especially places like people like farmers and service-oriented technicians tend to do that with their businesses. Those people all got their hands slammed in the door, not because they overreached, but because all of a sudden banks had screwed themselves. And lenders had overborrowed for one of these like get rich in real estate house flipping nonsense, because the Armando Montalongos of the world are more responsible for the 2008 crash than the people who bought a house they couldn't afford, because they could afford it. It was just a lot of their income. And the second their income took a dip, they couldn't. The risk was too much that if they lost their job or they got a cut in pay or a cut in hours, then they were in danger. But that doesn't mean they were going to. It just meant these giant defaults crash the banks. Well, a lot of people had a house leveraged on another house, leveraged on another house, leveraged on another house in these stacks. You buy these houses, make up some equity in it, take the equity out, use it as a down payment to buy another house, and just roll these, things up. You lose the first one, they all go like dominoes. And that was a big part of the 2008 crash that doesn't really get talked about a lot. It gets laid at the feet of people who, who are like, poor people shouldn't have got these loans in the first place. It is effectively the mortgage version of the welfare queen argument. It's basically what they were doing. So in this situation, there are a lot of businesses. Obviously, the farmers are getting hit really hard by Trump's tariffs and stuff. Soybeans and corn and other things that they produce are not going to be able to sold. A lot of it's rotting in the silos. They're literally there are farmers who can't sell the soybean for a price that's worth transporting it. Wrap your head around that. You have a product that is more expensive to carry than it's worth. You are better off just fertilizing your soil with it, just dumping it back on the ground. And then Edward in our chat says, how kind of like Trump organization with loan on loan. That's exactly right. That's partly how this guy stayed afloat, besides the Russian money, which we will get to today. But Trump is threatening to close the southern border and cutting off aid to Central America. So these are his two things. Trump lives in such a transactional world that he'll sell weapons to Saudi Arabia even though they murdered a journalist and a legal resident of the United States, because the money that comes in is the most important defining factor of all. There is no value that he sees higher than cash coming in. And so in the case of Khashoggi, it's basically tough. We're not going to not make billions over one guy. I mean, it is the most egregious, murderous, money-hungry, disgusting, amoral and immoral behavior. The kind of stuff that Republicans used to decry. That there was a crossover that happened, especially after Vietnam, where everybody started getting on board with, we don't want to commit troops. Now, don't get me started on Iraq and Afghanistan in that regard. People putting yellow ribbons on trees and whatnot and saying we support our troops, but by sending them into a place that they might die based on nothing. And then the very same people, the support our troops crowd, showing up at the RNC with purple Band-Aids, making fun of John Kerry's Purple Heart. So, but Trump's transactional lifestyle, like are we getting money coming in for this? And he talks about everything. I mean, he literally, that thing where he's sitting with MBS, did you see that, Johnny, where he's holding up the thing that should be on an easel that was like, they're buying these bombers. We sold them 6 in it, like this embarrassing hand graphic, and he hands it to him like it's one of those big fake checks that you get at a fundraiser for Girl Scout cookies or something. And if I liked MBS at all, I would have been embarrassed for him. I think it was kind of amazing that he was like used as a prop in that situation, though, because he's a truly horrible human. But ultimately, that's the only way Trump can understand this. So he looks at, we're going to shut the border. They need us more than we need them. We must be selling stuff that they want. Not recognizing that during the winter, we don't produce a lot of vegetation, folks, up here in North America. A lot of our avocados, a lot of our green beans, a lot of our corn comes from Mexico. It's grown in Mexico. And the reason it's grown there is because it's warm there during the winter. And if you close the border, they might have food they can't sell, but they can eat it. And they can sell south. They can sell everywhere else. So Trump's idea that, he does not understand that transactional part, that we actually have there's a cohesion between our, how our border works with our border countries. Same thing with Canada. That we have, there's benefits that come with people coming and going. And thank you, Richard, in the chat room. Awesome. So in all of these situations, like he only knows the unidirectional aspect of an economic transaction. That's all he knows. And that's his only reference. And so he's going to shut the border. The other thing he's going to do, is he's going to cut off aid to Central America. This is one of those NATO-esque, and Japan freakouts.
Because we're suckers?
Yeah, right. We pay so much to these people for what? What do we get from them? Like, okay. Well, and there's a lot to unpack in these. But one of the reasons we give money to South American countries, besides humanitarian reasons, which is the base root of why you can and should, if you're the wealthiest country in the world, is because if they don't get it from us, they get it from Russia. And Russia uses them as a strategic point. Venezuela just got 2 big supersonic bombers from Russia for quote-unquote war games. This is stuff that we've been having this kind of proxy game of Risk with Russia for ages. And one of the areas that we can benefit them that Russia can't. Russia can make its people produce military items, and it can give you bombs and guns and that kind of stuff. But it can't really give you money. Because a lot of the money that's being taken out of Russia is being taken out by oligarchs and hidden, and a lot of it is sanctioned, and so a lot of it has to be under the table and all this stuff. So that's where the sort of corruption goes on down there. But it's not overt. You can't go to your people and say, "Thank you very much, Vladimir Putin for this money that you gave us, for our citizens to help, grow food, build roads, blah, blah, blah. You can't do it. You can do it with the Americans and the Chinese, but you can't do it with the Russians. And the Russians have strategically been moving around in South America for a very long time. So that's one of the reasons we give it. The other reason is people are hungry and people have crime issues down there. Most of the people who are in the caravan, a good chunk of them came from a city that's the murder capital of the world. If we don't give that humanitarian aid, and other countries too, by the way, if they don't do that, then there's more reason for people to leave that country. There's more reasons to join a caravan. One of the reasons we do that is so the situation is to get so bad down there that they have to come here just to live. Well, guess what? And the plot thickens. We'll be back right after this. It's the Housemarks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. The tweets today. Oy. Always a good move, Rainbow. Do what you can to be true to yourself. Mm-hmm. Took resources out to Central America and import terror. Ears are like... How did China place a listening station in Argentina recently? Yes, is the short answer.
You have 1 minute, Hal.
Thank you. What aid? No, financial aid, Robin. We give financial aid. I'll see if I can find...
Now let's get back with HealthSpark's radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Welcome back. So, the U.S. in, let's see, in 20...
You have one call, by the way.
Oh, good. Okay, cool. We'll get them in just 1 second.
You'll never guess who it is.
Tom. He's just calling... Our friend Tom. Yeah.
High school.
Yes, right. It's Brian from high school. It's Mike.
Wait. By the way, do you remember the old Woody Woodpecker cartoon?
Of course.
With the piano concerto where the cop is looking for the money and the bank robber's with the gun inside the piano?
Yes.
And the cop comes looking for the money that's just sitting right by Woody Woodpecker, and it busts out everywhere, and Woody goes, no.
Yes.
I finally found that on YouTube. Thank you, YouTube.
Right.
And I shared it with Tom on Facebook, and there was much love. And now my wife knows why the heck every time she says the word dough that I start to sing.
Right. And now everyone listening to the show will now too. So
right.
They're going to have
welcome.
Go. Yeah. So before we get to our caller, who isn't any of the people we mentioned,
Nope.
and is not Woody the Woodpecker, the U.S. gave $180 million to Honduras in 2017, $257 million to Guatemala, and $118 million to El Salvador in aid. Trump is threatening to cut off that if he does not get and close the border. That money to the U.S. budget, negligible. It's a blink. It's genuinely nothing compared to what we will lose daily if he shuts down the border, and the cost of the people coming here because of those cuts will completely swamp that amount of money. Just 2 more caravans, you've got that amount of money gone. In legal proceedings and the like or whatever, we pay that money to those countries to keep them from falling apart so that everybody doesn't stampede up here, essentially. One of the things you would think is that you could make an appeal to giving more aid to those countries, to the very racists that support Trump. If we can make sure their governments don't collapse, they won't come up here. And would you not come up here? Would you not come to America, sir? Would you not want to be in America if you were anywhere else? Hey, it's the greatest country in the whole world, America. I would be there in a heartbeat. I'd crawl through mud to get here. Well, so would other people. Well, we got to pay to keep them out. So a lot of those folks, I think, could be swayed if they knew that one of the reasons we give that money is so that people don't have to make a 1,000-mile trek to come up here and just earn, servants' wages, essentially, which they could send home.
Really, I heard on the Joy, because she's covering for Rachel, was talking about immigration with someone, and apparently till like 1921, the only people that we kept out were the Chinese, and everybody else, it was just like, come on in, yeah, you're good. They just passed the eye test.
That's right. It was a little more complicated than that, but for the most part, yeah. And one of the things we had about a porous border is that people would come over and work and go back. One of the things that you set up when you have a wall that Trump does not seem to understand, and none of his supporters understand, that migrant workers and people who come over here to do stuff, and I guess they want to set up like a job site doorway, where if you're going to work over here, you walk through the doorway and you come over and you work and you go back. That there are cities that share the border, and people will just come and go back and forth across the border for a long time. And it was just kind of normal life. You understood it was the border, and if somebody was chasing you in a police car, they had to stop at a certain point, either direction, but everybody else could kind of just walk back and forth a little bit. But that had a lot to do with the local commerce and the local cultural exchange that happened along these border towns. Then it got gnarly, and everybody started worrying because
that's where all the murderers and drug dealers, and they can just go and then they go home for safety.
Well, I forget. I'm blitzing on the name right now, but there's a town that's a border town right across from I believe Arizona, someplace, that it was for the longest time a murder capital of the world, for lack of a better phrase. And there was just constant drug killings and all that kind of stuff. Never mind the fact that part of the cause of that is our, quote, war on drugs and our use of drugs that leads to that. That if America was so not violent and so wonderful, we wouldn't cause the trickle of that. It's like Newport, Kentucky being kind of a cesspool for a long time because Cincinnati decides to outlaw porn, if you remember the Larry Flint story. Well, that didn't get rid of Cincinnati's porn. It moved it into Kentucky. And so all these Cincinnati businessmen and women who would engage in stuff.
Know.
I'm from Kentucky. I was born in Cincinnati. I know that bridge well. but they would basically outsourcing your immoral
That's how
behavior.
you made all your money.
That's right. Yeah.
Black market porn.
That's right. Smuggling it across the border like East Berlin. But all it did was make the town across the border a cesspool. It didn't mean that there was no moral culpability in Cincinnati. There of course was. They just made it someone else's problem. And the same thing has happened with our drug usage in this country. Now, fentanyl being what it is, and the issues around that, that's another story. We've only got 5 minutes before we go to the break, so I want to make sure we get who I think is going to want to talk. So let's make sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, we bring to you line 1, Steve from the Gold Coast.
Steve from the Gold Coast, right on. Hey, Steve, welcome. Is he there? Is his phone okay? Do we have him?
Stevie,
After all that big wind-up. I don't hear him. That would be so sad.
Hear nothing.
Nothing.
There he is. Yay.
There's the ding. Hang on. Let me clear my throat.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm ready. One, you already stole my thunder with regard to the whole notion of creating a border wall. It was in the early 90s when we started to get tough on the notion of keeping people out at the border that you stop this sort of circular migration pattern where people would come here, they'd work for a while, then they'd go back. They had no intention of staying here to collect Social Security or settle here permanently. And you effectively said that, once you're here, if you leave, you're going to have a heck of a time trying to get back, so you're forced to stay.
That's right.
And so we created that problem.
And the wall would make that worse. The wall would make more people have to come here illegally and stay here without ever returning home so they wouldn't lose their position or their place or their ability to earn money, as a migrant worker. Right.
Right, and how do we know that? We know that because when people fled East Germany and managed to beat the machine guns and made it into West Germany, they didn't go back during Christmas to visit their relatives.
Right.
And then try to come back again. So no, yeah, you're absolutely right in that regard. I mean, Trump, this has been a human being, who is a testament to the notion that the founding fathers were right when they decided that representative government would be a good idea, that a republic was a better idea than a direct democracy, that people with certain degrees of expertise are perhaps better qualified than others to govern. And there's a great book called The Death of Expertise by a gentleman by the name of Nichols. I suggest everybody read it if they can. And it talks about how you've got this phenomenon today, that comes with the age of the Internet, where everybody and their mother thinks that because they have access to cable news, talk radio, and Google, that they are therefore qualified to be a public policy analyst, to run for president, to be the Speaker of the House.
Right.
I mean, this is where we are. And of course, Donald Trump exacerbates this because most people, it's fair to say, recognize that they're not qualified to do many things. Donald Trump actually believes he knows more about the economy than economists. He knows more about war, international relations, than foreign policy experts, than generals. How many times has he said these sorts of things? And this is where we are. I mean, and when you create, say, for instance, a policy with regard to tariffs, and there are some people who think that tariffs are a good idea. Nobody thinks that tariffs are a good idea wherein you say to farmers, oh, by the way, the change goes into effect in a month and a half, 2 months, where you don't have the ability to transition over so that, I'll get rid of what I have now and I'll plant something down the road that we're not going to impose tariffs on. No, you're going to get hit on what you planted this season, and that's just tough luck for you. I mean, he just doesn't think long term. There's no strategic thinking in this man's mind.
He also he just does not recognize, as a quote-unquote counterpuncher, I think that's the only way he can kind of reference stuff is that I do one thing and somebody else does something. He's got a very checkers mentality in what's, in the economy is a three-dimensional game of Spock chess from Star Trek. It's complicated, and it has all kinds of secondary effects that even people who have studied it can't see coming because it's so complex. And this idea that he's going to paint by numbers is absurd.
Yeah, and I mean, when you talked about, for instance, the idea that Mexico was going to pay for the border wall, and you explained why it is that they're not. No, first of all, for people who don't know it, Mexico's number one revenue-generating resource is energy. 2, it's tourism. Number 3 is money that people living abroad send back to their relatives in Mexico.
Right.
So why in God's name And as we all know, it's not doctors and lawyers that are crossing the border from Mexico to come to the United States. So why in heaven's name would Mexico stop exporting its low-income persons, which are the people who tend to come to the United States, who then turn around and send huge sums of money back to the people living in Mexico and help that economy?
And why would they ever want them to come back? They would actually support the idea of them getting stuck there. Right.
Right, exactly. So Trump seems to think that the Mexican people and the Mexican government are one and the same. And you couldn't have a further divide. You think that we hate Congress, you think we hate our government here in the United States when we poll people. Ask the Mexican people what they think of their government. So, again, Trump thinks that, Mexican people gather together in this giant Maoist kind of rally, and, that's their government. The Mexican people are much farther divorced from their government than we are from ours.
Right. But they
also... There are the haves and then the have-nots.
That's right. And I think the richest man in the world is a Mexican national who owns cell phone services and companies over there now. Officially, the richest man in the world is Mexican. Thanks for the call, Steve. Appreciate it. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. More of your calls, 773-763-9278. That's interesting. That's interesting. So, oh. Yeah. What was this? So, I'm looking at, how do you think Trump ever played chess in Washington Square Park? No. Mexico has a leftist president now, by the way. Yeah. I was teaching preschool. There were many kids from Mexican families who came up here to work and then went back to Mexico for a few months. Yeah. Japan is now hiring because their population is aging without young upstarts. They're not, but they're not allowing people to immigrate. If you go to Japan, there is no permanent immigration status. Thank you, Natalie. You guys, I almost don't feel sick now. That's so sweet. I'm so glad Summer got the picture of the cat, and he's doing great, and he's bigger than Murph, or like Maddie, it seems. Thank you so much. Rice call pay for cilantro. Don't forget to tweet out the show. He says as he forgot to tweet out the show. That's right. Don't forget to give the show a thumbs up, like it, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, which most of you may be. Yeah. Can I still hold dual citizenship? 15 pounds. Holy smokes. Dual citizenship with who? Think about how centrist Macron has been getting all the praise from the media in the U.S., and now he has to deal with protests because of his overreach and aggressive taxation. Yeah. Thank you, Rainbow Eclipse. I appreciate that. Throat coat doesn't affect me the way it does other people, I don't think. Oh, Japan. No, you cannot have dual citizenship there. Well, I mean, maybe it's different if you were born there or you had some sort of, if your family, is from there, or whatever. But if you emigrate to Japan to work, they will not. Their new policy is you cannot become a permanent you'll never become Japanese. Is essentially the idea. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I use honey in mine. I'm drinking emergency with Manuka honey in it. I feel good. I just sound like crap. Honestly, I'm not sweaty. I don't have any pain. It's just a tickle and a cough, and it's the tail end of this. I have a background in economics and the stock market. And Hal, you are spot on. Wow, thanks, Elaine. That's really reassuring. Because sometimes a lot of this stuff is so complicated. I don't like talking out of school. I probably would make more YouTube videos and, short form ones, except I never want to be wrong, which is impossible as a human being. And so I go, I'll wait till I'm talking in context.
1 minute, Hal.
Okay, thank you. I'll wait till I'm talking about something in context, and then I know at least I can, I'm not talking out my backside. You're just raspy and mysterious today. Thank you, Zelda.
Take it back a minute now.
Okay. Pink salt, Listerine, PS. What's PS and you won't get it? What's PS? Oh, pink salt, Listerine. Mm-hmm. I took an econ class in college. I did not. I did not go to university. I'm one of the on paper I'm a Trump voter, because I didn't go to university or college. I studied vocational stuff after school, and I've been working since I was 16. And I'm a white male, average in every way except charm. Have we learned something from all this? They're allowed to get this bad under a president like Trump. Are we missing a crucial check?
Now let's get back with Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Ah, nice. The Woody Woodpecker theme. Oh, now I really have to throw up the fair use thing on my YouTube channel to cover my butt.
Don't throw up.
It was interesting the other day. The first time I was like, do I show my kid who's 7 now the Three Stooges? Because I think I was about 7, 8 when I discovered them and the Little Rascals, and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And I so I rewatched some of them, and I was like, yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's I even by our kind of modern standards or whatever, you'd think, oh, this is just horrifying, but it's
right.
Overall fairly simple moral structure. They're terrible towards each other, and largely it excuses them beating the crap out of each other because when they're rude to other people, they all get it. They all have it coming, essentially. You know what I mean? That's one of the interesting things. And there was some HuffPost articles and nonsense about people getting riled up about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer or Baby It's Cold Outside and those kind of things. And
you know what actually deserves all of that ire is the Bing Crosby movie Holiday Inn. They're huge. It's the one where they debuted White Christmas. It's a famous movie.
Yeah.
There's so much blackface and just horrible stuff in that movie.
Well, yeah, I mean,
unreal.
Those are but the structural, I'm talking about like going after the moral structure of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer because they're mean to him. Yeah, that's the point. The whole point of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer was a message to people, kids especially. If you feel like an outsider, if you don't feel like, if everybody picks on you, if you are bullied, something special about you, and one day they'll all realize it. That's the whole message. And they do. And it's almost like, everybody's going, Rudolph's a terrible story. It's a terrible, terrible story. Yeah, if you don't watch the last half hour, you maniac. We have literally
It's a Wonderful Life. It's about a guy whose life gets worse and worse and he commits suicide.
Yeah, that's right. We don't show the part where he wants to be alive again. That's, I dozed off at that point. But there's a lot, there's a ton of those kind of things these days where it's ironic to me that we live in an era where you can't look at, Rudolph or something, which is a clearly delineated moral message about anti-bullying, essentially. And it's more a lesson for, the kids who would be bullied going, you're special. Don't let anybody tell you you don't have something special about you. And as a matter of fact, the very thing they pick on you for might be the very thing that they're glad you have, because you're smart, because you can run fast, because whatever your thing is, run, Forrest, run. There's always that. You might find a need for that later on, and they won't recognize it until it's too late. So you got to believe in yourself and all that. And a message to the bullying kids that, you might make fun of somebody, but that he might be pulling your sleigh one day. He might be in charge. He might be the head of the reindeer pack. You know what I mean? So, but you know what I'm saying? The idea is that, you shouldn't treat people like that. You should be good to them because you won't realize later how important you needed them. Without them, you're lost. And it's kind of the nerd culture we've grown up in, which is finally people started recognizing that, if a nerd isn't good at sports or whatever, the fact that he might be able to sit down, focus, and design an app might change your entire existence. And so, cut him some slack, or her, quite frankly. And so, and then at the same time, we're all pro Thanos now. Like, I could see where he's coming from. He had a rough childhood. Like, buzz off. That drives me crazy. Anyways, I'm getting off on a total rant about this. This is what happens when I see Thanos toys in Target, and I'm like, I don't know what kind of serial killer you're trying to raise. Like, why would you give your kid a Thanos toy? Honestly, don't let him dress up like Kylo Ren. Don't give him the Darth Vader lightsaber, and do not give him the Thanos glove, for God's sakes. Other than that, I have no opinion. So. I was looking at during the break, that of what.
That's another thing I hate about Adam Driver.
Right. So of the states, those numbers I was talking to you about, the Guatemala and Honduras and El Salvador. This is economically. This is the U.S. foreign aid that Trump, wants to pull back, because we pay these countries all this money and we get nothing from it. Okay. Now, keep in mind what I said before about this idea that, this amount of money tempers the amount of people who come up here for other reasons other than just kind of economic tourism, right? So, in total, we're talking ballpark like, I'm gonna go with let's see, $600 million in general. Of U.S. foreign aid to those three countries in total. Okay, we give $500,000 to Congo, to the country of Kinshasa. We give, I think Yemen in and of itself. I have to find it down here. We give that almost that exact amount to the country of Yemen every year. And think about what's going on in Yemen right now. What the United States is, in Trump's backing the Saudis and not wanting to temper that. We give them $595 million a year. Well, we did last year, anyways. It's gone up. Now it went down in 2018 to 287, but it peaked because of the last bill that Obama put in. From 2015, it was at 177. It went all the way up to nearly $600 million in aid in 2017, because that was that kind of rolling from before. But that in the same year that we gave those three countries that amount of money, we gave that amount of money just to Yemen. Trump himself has no concept of that. There's no way he's going. By the way, my site, I go to USAID.gov. And you can literally look at they have a thing called the Foreign Aid Explorer, where you can literally see, what money goes out and to where, what countries it goes to. Brad wants to know in the chat room how much we give to Wakanda every year. They don't need any. We could borrow from them, I think, is the idea. But the whole purpose of that, it lets you know where you're going. We give We give $400 million just to the West Bank and Gaza. So again, what we're paying, and that's that's compared to 3 countries, right? But that money, one of the things it does, or it's supposed to do, is to help balance and make sure that the lowest rung of humanity in those countries has some sort of social services or protective services, or clean water to drink, whatever they use it for in that regard, to protect them. Now, do they always use it that way? No, of course not. But that's the purpose of it, and that's why we do it. And the understanding is that we do it, and we do it above board. By the way, we give $35 million to Canada in foreign aid every year. That's kind of a surprise. But the point is that he's so transactional. That's all he can look at. We give them this money, and then all I get is grief. They just send us a pile of people. Now, right now, if you think of cities that have a lot of, especially Hispanic and Mexican immigrants, South American immigrants coming in, it's Los Angeles. That's one of the bigger cities that has, certainly a huge amount of people. And there's all this, these stories about this Stanislaus County officer who was killed by an illegal immigrant, and a lot of noise was made about that. But crime in Los Angeles is down for the first time in 50 years. It's been increasingly lower. So this idea that you're spooking people is, as a strategy, is failing sort of miserably. When we get back, we're gonna. I don't know if we have any calls, but we might take a call. But I want to talk more about.
I could do the Phil Henry thing and pretend to call.
Oh, that's fun. I want to talk a little bit about the what made Trump angry today. He's tweeting about Mueller again because a Manafort report came out. Well, we'll talk about it. We're going to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Yeah, Thanos, but if you take its logical conclusion, there would be no toys of Darth Vader, Skeletor, Megatron. No, Mark, I don't mind the toys if you're playing with them, but costumes and wearing the stuff. Are those Kiss bobbleheads on that shelf? No, those are Kiss, they're like trophy-style stands, yeah. WCPT Radio, AM 820 in Chicago. I hope 2019 becomes a year we put to resident. It might be 2021, Brad. During the holidays, it's causing a 30 or 30% swing. Nice. Well, that's good. I like Gavin from Cal. He's bitching out Trump. Hey, you guys know I've been all about Gavin Newsom since I marched with him for marriage equality in San Francisco when he was the mayor. He's a good guy.
You have 1 minute.
Thank you. Zelda, you're the reason why I don't do the 360 camera in here, because I know there are people out there who would just look all around the room and go, okay, the window lock is open, and clearly the house faces east, or whatever, Hal, what if it's not about somebody who can run fast or somebody who can draw? What if it's about a physical abnormality, facial scar, birthmark, like Rudolph having a big red nose? The point of that even is that in those terms, that's not that story for that. But I see, because I see your point. But insofar as like the birthmarks and stuff, you don't know the value of it or why it's important. You may find out. How about that? How about you had a birthmark?
Now back to the Hal Sparks radio program,
I'll tell you
Mega Worldwide,
post-show.
773-763-9278.
So Donald Trump just tweeted a couple hours ago, just had a very long and very good call with President Xi of China. Deal is moving along very well. If made, it will be very comprehensive, covering all subjects, areas, and points of dispute. Big progress being made. Okay, if deal's moving along very well, if made, nothing. Yeah. That is nothing. That's garbage. That is
moving
just
along if made.
Yeah, deal is moving along very well. If made, it would be very comprehensive, covering all subjects.
Lottery money is coming in very handy if I win.
Check is in the mail. And then basically he was on a little tirade. So right before that, which is, by the way, why he tweeted the one right after it. Because apparently at the same time he was on that phone, because both of these tweets came 2 hours ago, he was, I'm in the White House waiting for Democrats to come on over and make a deal on border security. From what I hear, they're spending so much time on presidential harassment that they have little time left for things like stopping crime and our military. I mean, from what I hear, really, I'm waiting for the Democrats to come over and make a deal on border security. They had already passed a bill in the Senate. The House was already ready to sign it. Deal was being made.
Yeah, the deal was made.
Yeah, the deal was made. You just had to sign a continuing resolution. So I would say that since you have to get their votes, you'd go over there. It would seem. But spending so much time on, I love presidential harassment. Poor baby.
Oh, my goodness.
And then so right before that, obviously, was the Mueller angry Democrats recently deleted approximately 19,000 text messages from FBI agent Lisa Page and her lover, Agent Peter S. These texts were asked for and invaluable, in caps, to the truth of the witch hunt hoax. It's a witch hunt hoax now. So is the witch hunt part a hoax, or is it a hoax? Never mind. This is a total obstruction of justice. All text demanded. So, apparently, there's been this big back and forth, this mystery case where the Mueller team has been negotiating a subpoena that has to do with an unknown company in an unknown country. But Mueller's team, they had a date of Monday when they could respond to whoever this was. So this is Politico. Special counsel Robert Mueller's office appears to have responded to a foreign company's bid to get the Supreme Court to step into a fight over a grand jury subpoena served on the firm. Most details of the case remain under seal at the Supreme Court since the company asked for an emergency stay last week, but an entry in the High Court's docket indicates a response was filed Friday, 3 days ahead of the Monday deadline set by the court. So Mueller knew they were going to respond and try to get out of it. He had his response ready, and they dropped it off early. On time and under budget. The filing was accompanied by an application to put the filing under seal as well. The docket entry doesn't indicate Mueller's office is involved in the legal fight. Indeed, there's not even a mention in the Supreme Court's public records that the U.S. government or Justice Department is involved in the case. That'll be, that's sort of obvious. When a federal appeals court issued a ruling last week turning down the company's efforts to quash the subpoena, the judges made public some details about the dispute. The D.C. Circuit order revealed that the firm involved is owned by a foreign government and was held in contempt by a district court who rejected the firm's arguments that its governmental ownership makes it immune from grand jury subpoena. Now, that could be Alpha Bank. It could be a Chinese company. Those are the two big ways I would lean, China and Russia, just because they tend to own big chunks of even their private companies. The appeals court also rejected claims that the firm should be excused from responding to the subpoena because answering the request would violate the foreign country's laws. The connection between the legal battle and Mueller's ongoing investigation of ties between the Trump campaign and Russia is murky, but a Politico reporter stationed in the D.C. Circuit Clerk's office, that poor guy, right, in October, literally, you've got the D.C. Circuit Clerk's office beat. You're just going to sit there and while people walk stuff up to the stand. I've seen people like that in court. Heard a visitor ask for a copy of a filing by the special counsel just hours after a sealed pleading was submitted in the appeal. I don't know if you heard that exchange or whatever, but they walked up and were like, "Hey, who are you?" They're like, "I'm nobody." "Who do you work for?" "I don't work for anybody. I wasn't here." And they just leave. So
what is this, Scientology?
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, I'm part of the Sea org or whatever. So the one of the biggest. And by the way, Trump 100 years ago went to Iraq to visit the troops and gave away the fact that I think SEAL Team 6 was there. Took pictures with them. You're not supposed to know where they are in the world, but, he wore his oversized bomber jacket, which makes his hands look even smaller. He didn't visit. He didn't visit with the Iraqi leaders, so they felt slighted. As soon as he left, they said, "Get your troops out of our country." Like it's just oh God.
We do have calls now.
Oh, nice! Look at that. Well, we got 5 minutes before this break. We could take one. We could take one if we want to jump in there. But
line 2.
Yeah, cool.
Rudy,
welcome to the show.
Hey, how you guys doing there, man?
Good.
Great.
Go ahead.
That's good. I went on a cruise with you a long time ago when we went down to Mexico with Rachel and
the Progressive Voices cruise.
Yes,
where I
that
beat
was a wonderful cruise.
Where I beat Rachel Maddow at a game of basketball, even though she is 3 feet taller than me. So, yeah. But go ahead.
You must have used your quickness, my friend.
I did. I used speed.
Reason I called the caller earlier was talking about Mexico and the dynamics there.
Yeah.
The relationship with that country is going to change a lot because they had an election just recently that they elected a gentleman called AMLO.
Yep.
Basically, the Bernie Sanders of Mexico.
Right.
And, the corruption stuff, the guy was right. That country was run for 80 years by the PAN party and the PRI for, I think it was 82 years. The Moreno party, which is what AMLO's party is, actually won landslides in both the Assembly and the House of Delegates. So he's going to be able to legislate the things he wants to do. And a lot of it is infrastructure in a rural area because so many people have forgotten about that down there. When NAFTA happened, as you probably well know, American corn undercut Mexican corn, and so many people emigrated because they lost their way of making a living down there. And they came north during late 90s, early 2000s after NAFTA was implemented. So I think things are going to change there because he's going to put an infrastructure program in there, and he's going to try to help Mexicans move up through a progressive agenda with the help of his Congress. And I think things are going to be they're going to be better in Mexico than what they have been.
Well, one would certainly hope. Obviously one of the standout issues in Mexico is the Oaxacan territories in the south, and one of the things that they are offering in as a stay in Mexico plan for some of the people that were in the caravan is that you can have asylum in Mexico, but you must move to the southern territories, which are statistically, over time have been the most impoverished parts of Mexico, and largely because that's where the native population, the what's left of the pre-Cortez Mexicans essentially, exist. That you would need an infusion of money and development in infrastructure simply to make that worth the asylum seekers' while, not to just continue on to the United States, which is true across the board. So I think you're right. I think that even the stuff that he's going to do was so long overdue that there's no avoiding it anyways. It's like running on one of those things that you should have fixed already. Like, I'm going to fix the truck I'm giving my speech off the back of to some degree. They don't really have a choice. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. Certainly, we've had curious luck in the past with left-leaning South American governments, of course. I think this is a new version of that, and I think certainly Mexico has a much better structure than, say, Guatemala or any of the other countries to sort of satisfy that type of government, make it a first world version of it. Fingers crossed that's what happens. So we'll see. But excellent point across the board. And I'll one of these days we should do like an HSRPM cruise or something. Everybody else seems to do it. If you know what I mean. What do you think, Johnny? Are you afraid of water?
Totally.
Okay, good. Then we have to have one. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Thanks, Rudy.
I swear to you, I was about to...
I have water in my ear from Brad, as long as he's yeah. Let's see, Tony Jones is a great Rocky Mountain Mike here. I agree. Norwegian or Viking? We should go someplace cold. That would be good. My girlfriend would hate it, but yeah, TuneIn has. We're on iHeart, I think, as well. I've been poked in the eye with a sharp stick, Carl, and you're not wrong. Oh, the mystery nude selfie. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second, too. I think it's Maria Bettina. That's my personal theory. Apparently Ben Joravsky got dropped over the weekend. Oh. Did he? Caribbean, hell no. Iceland, no. Alaska. Oh, dang it. Do you have enough of the cold waiting in airports for the late flights out? No. Twice the Senate passed immigration reform, but the House majority leaders refused to allow debate or vote. Yeah, that's because it would pass. I would have gotten it if I saw it, Carl.
1 minute, Hal.
Okay, thank you. I hate working on songs when I can't hear one of my left ear because of the sinus infection. No worries, Zelda. Iceland does seem very popular. I'm curious about it. Yeah, let's try to look at.
This is Tom Hartman, and you're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
So, obviously, in talking about the Mexican deal, as far as, their part in all this, we must remind everybody, I think, consistently, and it can never be dropped, that Trump campaigned that it was a large, beautiful concrete wall that Mexico was going to pay for 100%.
Yep.
That's it. There is no it was going to be, through payments. It was going to be derivative, and it's going to be a slat fence or whatever you want to call it. It was a giant concrete monument to himself, because that's what this is all about. This is, Trump might end up in a concrete building behind a wall at some point in his future over his business dealings, but he would always have his own big flat Mount Rushmore. That's what he has. Oh, thank you so much, QAF Laugh. You guys are awesome. Thank you guys so much for the super chats today. I really appreciate it. Funds go to helping making the show better, getting us gear and all that kind of stuff. Bone Spurs went and visited the troops, gave away the position of SEAL Team 6, basically using them as another campaign rally spot, complained about Democrats the entire time, and then flew back without basically earning the credit he got for visiting the troops finally after he was pushed to it, because basically the only reason he did it was to cover his butt. And everybody is aware of that. He had tweeted earlier, let's see, Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador are doing nothing for the United States but taking our money. Word is that a new caravan is forming in Honduras and that they're doing nothing about it. We will be cutting off aid to these three countries, taking advantage of U.S. for years. The United States loses so much money on trade with Mexico under NAFTA, over $75 billion a year, not including drug money, which would be many times that amount. Okay, first of all, we don't lose that stuff. We buy that much more stuff from Mexico because they produce it and we eat it. That is literally this. I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, but we're talking about the majority, like how much food production goes on and car production. So, it is as if the people in the restaurant were complaining that the kitchen was ripping them off because they saw they see the bill and don't realize how much they ate. You know what I mean? Like they got the tab for the liquor they drank, and look at it and go, they're too drunk to know that they drank all that liquor, and they're like, I'm not paying this. Like that. This is literally how he's looking at Mexico. The trade deficit aspect seems to be the part where he's really missing a fuse in his brain economically. He just does not get it. There's two new ones. Oh boy.
Two what? Two new tweets?
Yeah. From 6 minutes ago. Any deaths of children or others. I'm not even doing the voice. I'm not even doing the voice on this one. This is Trump just tweeted this 6 minutes ago. Any deaths of children or others at the border are strictly the fault of the Democrats and their pathetic immigration policies that allow people to make the long trek thinking they can enter our country illegally. They can't. If we had a wall, they wouldn't even try. The two children in question were sick before they were given over to Border Patrol. The father of the young girl said it was not their fault. He hadn't given her water in days. Border Patrol needs the wall, and it will all end. They are working so hard and getting so little credit. Okay. Oh my God. So during Obama, we basically had a net zero immigration from Mexico. We were sending people out as fast as they came in, sometimes more. It is an immigration problem that does not exist on a numeric level. We are a country of 330 million people. We absorb a certain number of migrant workers who come up here or people who cross over, and we send back a large number of them. But what didn't happen during the Obama years or any other presidents is that we took children in who were obviously sick, didn't treat them, and watched them die. And the idea that the Trump supporters, or who are happy about Kavanaugh because he's Catholic and therefore awesome, obviously pro-life in their theory, is that it's worth getting pro-life judges in there no matter how awful Trump is, no matter how many living children die on his watch. It is incredible to me how comfortable the evangelicals and the Christians that support Donald Trump are with the cost in lives and money that they, that if any of it had happened under Obama, it would be caused to set the White House on fire.
Yep.
It was only a matter of time before he was going to address the deaths of these two children in U.S. care. I will say that there is a very strong chance that this, in trying to get this kid across the border as fast as he could in a situation where he didn't have any water or enough water, that once he got in care, there may have been no saving this child. However, the policy that has ICE agents kicking over jugs of water for fear that people will have them, as if that's is an actual disincentive for people to do it if they're already in a desperate state. Stay in a dangerous section of Mexico and have your child killed or sexually assaulted, or try to make the desert walk tonight. Any parent, and your child is sick. Any parent would pick them up and march through hell to get them there. And so this idea that somehow, the policies of Donald Trump do not play a part in this is absurd. They absolutely do.
Yep.
And his, this abject cruelty by which Trump is, prides himself on, that this was a strategy, that this is a Stephen Miller, approved policy to just scare people out of, of coming here. That's the idea. Make it so awful. And by the way,
we do have a caller who wants to talk about the Trump.
Oh, good. Okay, we got a few minutes left in this this block, so let's take them now. Yeah, great.
All right, we got Roosevelt.
Cool. Hey, Roosevelt, welcome.
How you doing, Hal?
I'm good. Go ahead.
How you doing? Second time caller, long time listener.
Thank you,
listen
sir.
to your show.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I wanted to add on. Rudy is right on target, and so are you. I lived in Mexico 6 years, and this is what they do. Everything that they export, like you said, tomatoes, avocados, is first class, the best. That's all. Everybody in Mexico knows that.
Yep.
The best quality of legumes or vegetables comes to the United States. Point one. Point two, Rudy's right on point as far as the current, well, not the president that's coming in, is the Bernie Sanders, whereas the guy that's leaving is the Paul Ryan, a coward, a guy that doesn't know how to do deals. And
right.
Now, I want to add on. I have family in Mexico, and specifically a cousin.
Yeah.
And he's a rancher. He knows ranchers in both sides of the border in Texas.
Right.
And he says there's Republicans along the border that don't want the wall.
Of course.
And they're going to tie it up in court for years.
Yes.
So there isn't going to be a wall.
No, yes. Thank you for bringing that up. Absolutely.
So it's not as simple as saying I'm going to build a wall and it's just going to happen,
Right. And that's, what's funny is the irony is the Democrats could give him this fake win, and it would cost them in supporters, but it would allow him to reopen the government and all this kind of stuff, and the wall would still never happen. I don't recommend they do that, but you're right.
And to add on, Hal, here's another thing too. Is this the worst deal maker you ever met in your life?
Oh my God!
Because,
oh yeah.
How about it? When he first got together with Pelosi and Chucky Schumer, he tried to push the issue of being the tough guy, of being the. And then he says, "I'll take the blame." Then he has a fit because he didn't get what he wanted.
Right.
And then he's influenced by Rush Limbaugh and all those nuts on the right
Coulter.
side.
Right.
And then here's another thing, Hal.
Yeah.
People are watching what he's doing and how he makes deals. China is going to eat him alive. Anybody that does a deal from a foreign country, they're going to eat him alive because he changes his mind so much. You can't depend on this guy.
Right.
And he's so easy to please especially Putin, eager to please, that he'll give the farm away. So he's basically, to me, a traitor and a guy it's a sellout. Anything for the profit, anything for money, like you said before.
I would go even further in that I think he's already bought. He knows he's bought, and this the shutdown and the border wall stuff is a winning issue for him with his base, and will cover all the noise that he knows is coming out in the next few weeks about the Manafort filings. This is, the Time Magazine did a report, came out today, or midnight last night, that says Russian ex-spy put pressure on Manafort over debts owed to Kremlin-linked oligarch. So they knew. Enough of this stuff is coming out. They know that a huge portion of this story is starting to leak out just because of the financial filing stuff that you can't necessarily put under seal, and Manafort's sort of open dealings with these guys. This is 100% why they were built for each other. Newt Gingrich coming out and going, you cannot underestimate how much Paul Manafort did for this campaign. The changing of the Ukraine position to not give them offensive weapons, move to a defensive only because he couldn't roll everything back. That is the collusion. That was a sign off with Trump's approval. They were doing Moscow's part. I appreciate the call. We're at a break, but that was. With Trump's approval. Trump was 100% aware of this and did not care. He just went, yeah, do it. We're trying to put a tower in Moscow. Putin will love that. It's with that much thinking. The same transactional, unidimensional thought pattern that he uses to look at foreign aid and immigration issues, he looks at the economy and he looks at law and order. It's stunning. And it looks like, finally, some Republicans are starting to wake up to this. But I don't think they're going to come on board fully until we hit a financial wall again. And the only upside is that the stock market tank this December happened before the Democrats were sworn in. We'll be back. Worst profit 30% for that's his base on. I would say war is not 100% profit. There are reasons to have wars. There are principled reasons to go to war. There are principled reasons to keep fighting even after something looks like you're going to lose, or even if it seems like a bad idea and all that. We haven't experienced that in a long time because of Iraq and Afghanistan. And sometimes we look at the industry that war became and lose sight that war amongst countries actually was about defending a form of governance, especially in the case of democracy, that is rare on the earth and in danger of being destroyed at all turns. And there are a lot of people who did a lot of things over the years that were, in hindsight, wrong or bad or mistaken because they were coming from that position. And you can't lose that when you're discussing the whole thing. Otherwise, it just seems like the whole, corporations are evil concept versus the corporations are people concept. It's much more gray than that. And I think we...
1 minute, Hal.
Thank you. We owe it to ourselves to speak in stronger terms. Diplomacy is always better, Julie, until it's not. Until the moment it's over. Until there is no other option. I told you Israel wouldn't like us pulling out of Syria. You were absolutely right, Julie. Yeah.
Hey, Hal.
Yeah.
How do you feel about sound bites?
I'm for it. Why?
Okay. Just wanted to ask.
All right. It depends on if it's a sound that Johnny made or do I know?
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. It's now time for the happy ending.
So, should I wait for a soundbite? Am I getting one? Is this? Yeah. Julie in the chat room is telling me to be very, very afraid. And Carl in the chat room.
Wall.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Play that again real quick.
I will build a great, great wall.
Yeah. Call it slats, whatever you want. That part to me was one of my favorite parts of 2018. If you had to look back on one of your favorite moments from Trump world, what would it be? Is he with us, or did he go to the bathroom? Did I lose him? I don't hear him. There you are.
Nikos is not so worried about my mic being on.
Oh, okay. I actually remind me to give Nikos a tip or something. I don't know how that works, but yeah.
Oh goodness. Well,
yeah.
Never mind. So, he's fallen on his face so hard so many times this year.
Yeah.
That when I think any headline where they go out of their way to choose like a scowly picture of him or a pouty picture of him saying that something went horribly wrong.
Right.
Like some conversation with it is quite sincerely impossible to pick one because they all bleed into the next one. And just the noose slowly tightening is making the news bearable again.
Yeah, well, one of the things...
I don't care.
One of the things that we have... Here we go. Hold on.
A legal process. It's very dangerous out there. Drugs are pouring in. Human trafficking. So many different problems, including gangs like MS-13. We don't want them in the United States.
We don't want them in our country.
The only thing that's going to stop that is great border security with a wall or a slat fence or whatever you want to call it.
That rollback is one of the most pathetic flaps. That's where the panic started. That video where he said a wall or a slat fence or whatever you want to call it. That sent a chill down the exoskeleton of Ann Coulter and into the third layer of gelatin that pads the existence of Rush Limbaugh's autonomous cell structure. I don't know if there's a soul in there, but drugs are pouring into our country. Apparently, they're just dumping them over the wall or putting them between the slat fence. But that funny, QAF in the chat room says, telling a 7-year-old there's no Santa, it's marginal.
Oh, yeah.
Do you believe? Carl says slat fence is his new porn name.
Ew.
I like it. Yeah. So that one moment for me, this is when it all started to fall apart. If you want to, we can track, the firing of Mike Flynn, the indictment of Michael Cohen, the raiding of his office, all that stuff pales in comparison to
border security with a wall or a slat fence or whatever you want to call it.
Oh my God, just the dunsiest. A wall or a slat fence or whatever you want to call it, people. So President Donald Trump's 2016 campaign chair was pressured by a Russian oligarch over his debts, Time magazine reports on Saturday. Former Russian intelligence officer Viktor Boyorkin.
What does your girlfriend's cat do when it's about to throw up?
Boyorkin. Yeah. Viktor Boyorkin was a key link between Manafort and Russian Federation President Vladimir Putin. By the way, there are no oligarchs that aren't links between Putin and the rest of the world. The report followed a months-long investigation by Time. He owed us a lot of money, Boyorkin says, and he was offering ways to pay it back. Boyorkin says he was approached by special counsel Robert Mueller. I told him to go dig a ditch, Boyorkin said. The connection could mark some of the clearest evidence of the leverage that the powerful Russians had over Trump's campaign chairman. Commander-in-Chief also said he was waiting for Democrats to make him an offer on taxpayers, blah, blah, blah. I'm in the White House waiting for Democrats to come over, blah, 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 blah. But the Time magazine report, basically goes into the fact, and Bjorken's on the sanctions list, for the record. Oh, thank you, Sandra. Awesome. Michigan down 3 at the half, but still Happy New Year. Sports has been rough for everybody. Although the the Golden Knights won last night before last.
Too much talk, not enough action.
Bjorken told the Time, let's see, in the heat of the presidential race, he owed us a lot of money. He was paying his back. I told him to go dig a ditch. Through his spokesman, Manafort likewise declined to comment on his alleged connections with Bjorken. But those connections could be potentially important to the special counsel's inquiry. They would mark some of the clearest evidence of the leverage the powerful Russians had over Trump's campaign chairman, and they may shed light on why Manafort discussed going right back to work for pro-Russian, thank you, Milkman Norm, for pro-Russian interests in Eastern Europe after he crashed out of the Trump campaign in August 2016. You talk about the whole, like, there was no collusion, but his campaign chairman went right back to working for Putin right after the campaign. And there was never there was this like, well, he was doing some stuff so he couldn't be here. But he's a good man, and I stand by him, and I like him. When he joined the campaign in spring of 2016, Manafort was nearly broke. I love these nearly broke guys with 5 houses.
I don't get that.
I gotta say, I'm impressed. I don't know how these people pull off. I mean, you would just have to be how immoral.
Yeah, that's it.
Because I could never do that. I just couldn't. Yeah. Anyways, so Bjorken says it fell to him to collect the debt from Manafort. I came down on him hard, he says. But the American proved elusive. In a petition filed in the Cayman Islands in 2014, lawyers for Deripaska, a metals tycoon with close ties to the Kremlin, complained that Manafort and his then partner had, quote, simply disappeared with around $19 million of Russia's money. When he reappeared where was that conversation? That there was obviously Time's been doing this story, but think about that for a second. If the American people had news that Trump had hired a guy who had borrowed $19 million, was in debt $19 million to the Russians, which we kind of knew he had money going over there, but that they had filed a lawsuit because he'd split with $19 million and was basically running around like Han Solo trying to pay back Jabba the Hutt before Greedo shows up. Han shot first, by the way. When he, so it says when he reappeared in the headlines around 2016, Manafort was serving as an unpaid advisor to the Trump campaign. He wanted his long-term patron in Moscow to know all about it. That's where he sent the thing saying, "Can we make this whole? Can we use this to get whole?" Mm-hmm.
It has not been easy for me.
No.
I started off in Brooklyn. My father gave me a small loan of $1 million.
Yeah, and then he borrowed $35 million of his siblings' money after his father had died to keep his company afloat. The Trump company, here's the 2 things people need to drill into the Trump supporter in their life. 1, Mexico was supposed to pay for the wall. Explain yourself. That's all. And secondly, the Trump organization has never worked on profit.
No.
Trump, supposedly this huge tycoon, his company has never run on the money it made. It has always run on debt 100%. It has never had a single day where money coming in from profit paid for the company to continue going forward. Ever. What success is that? How is that? And that's not Henry Ford-like success. That's not, Steve Jobs, anybody. That's not make a company. That company produces a product. People like product. Product sales let you pay yourself and build more product. The Trump organization, the Trump company, has never, not a single day ever, made a profit.
Which is why they made him shut down his sham charity, because he used it.
He used it as a slush fund to pay off debts because he was so in debt he had to use other people's charity money because people would give to the Trump Foundation.
Has that happened to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation?
Nope.
I don't think so.
It didn't even happen with the Clinton Foundation. They shut it down just because it got a bad name. And they didn't want it didn't benefit them after a while. But they weren't ordered to shut down by the state attorney general of New York and said you can never run a foundation again. The president of the United States cannot start a charity and operate it for the rest of his life, and neither can his adult children or his wife.
Presidential harassment.
Presidential harassment, where they come over and they grab me by the president. They just start kissing. They don't even ask. Manafort tried to offer these private briefings about the presidential race to Deripaska. Apparently, he's one of the emails put it to get whole, which is that's got to be when Manafort gets out of jail and writes a self-help book. That's the title. Get whole, Paul Manafort. This storyline is what triggered, more than likely, Rudy Giuliani and the other lawyers to have a sit down with Trump going, they have this information. This information is out, and this is the information that our lawyers have gotten from Manafort about these circumstances. And that's why we have a shutdown.
Yay.
Blame it on Ann Coulter and blame it on Rush Limbaugh and part of him having to protect his base and hold out for the wall.
Milli Vanilli.
Nothing to do with it. This is a distraction from the fact that the Mueller investigation is tightening. It is not going away. And his acting AG is not going to be able to stay in the office. You are awesome. A happy New Year to Nico and to Lady B and to you, Johnny Million. I love you dearly, my friend. Thank you for spending another year with the House Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. Thank you, everybody in the... Yeah. And thank you in the chat room for all you guys, being with us this whole time. Stick around for Dick Hay, and then we'll have a post show in the YouTube chat room. Thank you, Johnny. Love you.
Love you.
Bye. Buy Strange on iTunes by 01. There you go. There we go. Signing off. Thank you. Thank you, Nico. Thank you, Johnny. Thank you, whoever else hears my voice in Chicago whenever I do this. There we go. I couldn't tell if it was Kerry on the phones or who, because I'm not there. So, he cannot run a charity in Florida. Oops. My little calendar fell over. Don't fall over. It's not 2019 yet. I got to hang you up soon. I want to buy a lot more 01. Just waiting patiently. Yeah, it's a little hard for me to sing right now. We were supposed to track the first week of January. That might not happen. I think it might be the third week. Love watching Manafort trip down the courthouse stairs. Can't get enough. I didn't see that. Now I got to look up Manafort trips down courthouse stairs. I mean, he always walks funny, but steps there. Send me a link on Twitter. I didn't see that. I'm trying to find it. Videos. Can't come up with $7 for his own kid. What? Who's this? I missed something. No, he used the foundation to pay for Barron's Boy Scout dues, approximately $7. Yes, I know. Yeah. Trump only made money from selling his name. Now his name is trash, so no future in the business. Yeah, that's an interesting thing, too. You were absolutely right, because he's been involved more in branding than anything. I'm going to turn that down. And I don't have to have my earbud in anymore. I got a little hair standing up in the back, but I'm okay. So, hi, chat room. Trump only made money from... Let's see. Yeah, it's an excellent point. That's the best. Miss the Chihuahua, the ferret, or be on board for any Yeah, he can't be on a board for any nonprofit. He might get a hole in prison. I'm a boomer. I care less about Aquaman than Aqualung. Let me see Tull. I can't deal with Tull because they beat Metallica for the Grammy and still a sore spot. And yeah, it's not their fault. Thanks, Brad. You could probably run it. Let's see. Went to see Mary Poppins. Oh, that's nice. How was that? You look cute today, like every other day. It's frustrating. Thank you, Julie. Would be justice if Barron actually turned completely opposite of his father. More than likely, he will. Oh, thanks, Carrie. I tried. I love doing lab rats. It was super fun. Trump would totally pour Gatorade on plants. Yeah, it's got electrolytes. It's what plants crave, right? Hal, are you working on New Year's Eve? I remember seeing you one year on New Year's Eve in Bellevue, Washington. I'm not this year. I have it off. Summer's working, so I'm going to go basically sneak over and see her while she's working and give her a kiss at midnight. Went to see Mary Poppins last Saturday. That was before she had to stop flying because of the drone activity around Gatwick. Right. Yeah, I saw that. That plane got hit in the nose. Freedom from Earbuzz. Hi, Tom. Yeah. Brondo. Let's see. Yeah, I gotta find the Manafort. I gotta take courthouse out of it, and maybe I'll find it out. Maybe it's on Twitter. Working too. There you go. That's all I need. Oh, I see. Mary Poppins can't get nailed by a drone. You know, I had this thing like Billy Baldwin, who we love, by the way. Good guy. He was tweeting. He's like, when I was a kid, you know, I was thinking about, like, my older brother and sister were like, think about how many houses he would have to visit in one night. It's just physically impossible. It's 5 billion people or blah, blah, blah. And so I tweeted to him, I was like, magic and math are mutually exclusive. Merry Christmas. You know, because it doesn't have to, those things don't overlap. You know, this that kind of running constant idea that well, you know, you can't have, you know, the Easter Bunny or the Tooth Fairy, all these kind of magical things. Like, they use science to try to undermine them. Like, that's not even on the same time scale. It's like the same thing with religion. You can't go, yeah, like 6 days. Like, okay, well, 6 God days, are they the same as a human day? Does it matter? Is it metaphorical to the rise and fall of light? And to, like, let it go, man. Okay, I've got to start hold on, I'm going to do this real quick. I'll be down for a split second, and then I'll be right back.